Mark 7:24 to 37. Jesus left the place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know about it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply you may go. The demon has left your daughter. Then she went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk. They begged Jesus to place his hand on him. After he took him aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spat and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means be opened. At this the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosed, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. Mark 7:24 to 37. God bless the reading of his word. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her. It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Mark 7, verse 27. At first glance, this expression by Jesus is difficult for us as 21st century Christians to take. Like most Jews of the time, in this parable, Jesus refers to this Syrian Phoenician woman as being part of the dogs. Since the time of the Old Testament, after being liberated by God from slavery in Egypt, the Jews understand themselves as the children of Israel or the children of God. However, after many centuries of being invaded by other groups of people and being in war with them, Israel becomes entrenched in the view that they are the children and the rest of the world are dogs. Jesus is not in Galilee or Judea. He is in Gentile territory. He is in non-Jewish country. He is in Tyre in Syrian Phoenicia, north of the province of Galilee, near the Mediterranean Sea. Jesus goes into a house to rest. It has been a very busy time for him, teaching, healing, and casting out demons in Galilee. However, Jesus cannot keep his presence in foreign country a secret. As soon as this Greek-speaking woman hears of his presence in her town, she goes to him, a Jewish male rabbi visiting her part of the world. She has a daughter who is possessed by an impure spirit. She is desperate. Not only does this woman break into this house, she falls at Jesus' feet. She begs Jesus to cast the demon out of her daughter. The presence of this Greek-speaking woman challenges the Jewish people in the house. First, she is a woman and Jesus is a man. Talking between genders, even in public, is not an acceptable thing in those days. Second, she is a Gentile, not a Jew. She is a Greek-speaking Syrian Phoenician. Jesus is Jewish. He comes from the chosen people of God, the children of Israel. Third, this woman is what is known as a common person. Jesus is regarded by many in Galilee as a rabbi, a holy teacher from God. How can a common person meet a holy rabbi by entering the house where he is resting? Bible students tell us something about the New Testament Greek words in this passage. Jesus is referring to home pet dogs and not wild dogs. That is why those dogs are ready to eat the crumbs that fall from the dining table. Pet dogs are part of the family. Jesus is not referring to wild dogs who roam the countryside scavenging for food. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. The woman asks Jesus to cast the demon out of her daughter. What does the children's bread have to do with the casting out of a demon from a Greek-speaking girl? Through Moses, God liberated the people of Israel out of Egypt. On the night before they left, they were to slaughter the Passover lamb and make unleavened bread to share in a family meal. The unleavened bread becomes the symbol of salvation from Egypt. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread, because it was on this very day that I brought your divisions out of Egypt. Celebrate this day as a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. Exodus 12, verse 17. Then when they were in the wilderness for 40 days, God looked after them. Every morning he fed them with manna, small pieces of bread from heaven. Therefore, when Jesus refers to the children's bread, he is referring to the symbol of salvation of God for his children, the people of Israel. This Syrian Phoenician woman tells Jesus that she knows that she does not deserve the children's bread. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Mark 7, verse 28. This is the only time a non-Jew in the book of Mark calls Jesus Lord. The woman responds to Jesus by calling him Lord. The Greek word kyrios means Lord, Master, or Owner. The woman is calling Jesus her Master or Owner. Matthew, the first book in the New Testament, tells us what the woman says as she approaches Jesus. Matthew 15, verse 22. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. We have had that experience before. We are desperate. We are at the end of our ropes. We have tried every option humanly possible. There are no more options in sight. We can only go to Jesus in prayer. It was the third year of my pastoral ministry in Vancouver. Jim was a 24-year-old member in my congregation. He put me in touch with Keith, his good friend, who was also 24 years old. They were the best of friends at high school. Jim was at Teachers College. However, Keith was at home because he had cancer. He had gone for chemotherapy and radiation therapy. His house was a walking distance from our church building. I remember going to visit him to pray with him in his home. His parents were divorced. He was staying with his father. In times like this, as a pastor, you're sometimes at a loss for words when you pray at the end of the visit. Life was not meant to happen this way. Keith was a 24-year-old who should have had everything going for him. Deep down inside me, I would pray this prayer. Save him, Lord. Have mercy on us, Lord. Keith is not in a good place. One thing that was an encouragement to see was to see Keith grow in his faith in the Lord. Although he did not want to die, he slowly grew in his life of prayer and Bible reading. His dad called me as soon as Keith went home to be with the Lord. I had the privilege of praying with his dad and thanking God for Keith's life. I remember crying with Keith's dad as at the hospital. Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. The Greek-speaking woman's prayer described the desperate prayer of any person coming to Jesus for healing, whether they are Jew or Greek. Whether it is cancer or a spiritual emotional problem, we cry to Jesus, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, "For such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." Mark 7:28-29. Jesus is in the non-Jewish area of Tyre. Jesus is not in Jerusalem. Jesus helps the desperate Greek-speaking Syrian Phoenician woman and her demon-possessed daughter. Then Jesus goes to another non-Jewish vicinity. He walks down from Tyre next to the Mediterranean Sea to a region that is called the Decapolis, about 70 miles away. The Decapolis is located southeast of the Sea of Galilee. The Decapolis is also a Gentile non-Jewish area. Some people bring a man to Jesus who is deaf and can hardly speak. They ask Jesus to place his hand on the man and heal him. Jesus takes this man aside. Away from the crowd, Jesus puts his fingers into the man's ears. Jesus spits and also touches the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, "Ephphatha," which means be opened. At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosed, and he began to speak plainly. Mark 7:34-35. Here in Mark chapter 7, the author of Mark emphasizes to us that Jesus is on a mission to two places that are non-Jewish or Gentile in population. In Mark chapters 1-6, Jesus has been teaching and healing people in the province of Galilee. Galilee is the province north of Judea and Jerusalem. Galilee is the place where farmers and fishermen live. The more well-to-do class of people live in Jerusalem, not in Galilee. Now in Mark 7, Jesus goes beyond Galilee. Jesus is now on a mission to bless people who are not part of the children of Israel. In fact, in Tyre, Jesus shares the children's bread with a Greek-speaking Syrian Phoenician woman. She tells Jesus that she might not deserve the children's bread, but she's willing even to settle for the children's crumbs under the table. Jesus blesses this woman. The demon leaves her daughter. Jesus is not even in the same room when this happens. Jesus then goes to the Decapolis. This is also a place where most people who are not part of the children of Israel live. They do not deserve the children's bread. However, friends bring a deaf man to Jesus. The man also has a speech impediment and can hardly speak. His friends plead with Jesus for healing. Jesus has compassion on this man. Jesus looks up to heaven. This means that Jesus looks up to his heavenly Father, and with a deep sigh, he says to the man, "Ephphatha," which in Aramaic means "be opened." Jesus sighs with compassion. He opens the man's ears and loosens the man's tongue. Jesus goes beyond Galilee to Tyre and the Decapolis. Jesus goes to where the Jewish outcasts live. In the Decapolis, he heals the ears and tongue of this man. The people of the Decapolis, largely non-Jewish, are amazed at Jesus. Mark 7:37. The people were overwhelmed with amazement. "He has done everything well," they said. "He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak." The deaf man could not speak well. He must have had a lonely life. However, Mark tells us something about his life. Mark tells us that some people bring this man to Jesus. This man is blessed to have some people who care for him. They bring him to Jesus. The man and his friends live quite far away from Jerusalem in the Decapolis. However, they seize the opportunity when they hear that Jesus is coming to town. Perhaps Jesus, this Jewish rabbi from Galilee, can heal our friend. Last year, when we were at the early days of the pandemic, I recalled something that I occasionally mentioned on Sunday mornings. The church is the people and not the steeple. We were just beginning to understand that we can still be the church, even though we do not meet in person in the church building on Sunday mornings. Now we are on the cusp of returning to some semblance of what life was like before the pandemic. We still need to keep on masking and physical distancing when we return to the building. We are so thankful that we can return on Sundays for the worship gathering. We will still maintain an online connection. The church is the people, not the steeple. might share something that happens in his church when a street person walks into their church worship gathering on Palm Sunday. On the Sunday before Easter, a stranger appeared at a Sunday school reeking of alcohol after heavy drinking at a local festival. The Sunday school class invited him to stay for the Palm Sunday service, which began with the congregation joyfully waving palms. Walking with uncertain step, the visitor caught on and waved his palm heartily. Before the sermon, the congregation greeted one another. The visitor seemed genuinely blessed as each person took his hands, looked into his eyes, and said, "The peace of God be with you." But then he restlessly ambled around the edge of the sanctuary. No one knew what to do. After several minutes, a woman went to the imposing visitor, took his hand, and asked, "Would you like to come and sit with me?" He responded to her gentleness and sat attentively through the service. Only weeks before, that kind woman had told the pastor of her inordinate fear of strangers. They prayed that God would help her overcome her phobia. Fears are real, but the kind of love God gives can nudge out, expel, and conquer fear. Jesus is like that woman reaching out to strangers. We were all strangers to the grace of God. Jesus reaches out to the Syrian Phoenician woman and her daughter. Jesus heals the man's ears and loosens his tongue in the Decapolis, a non-Jewish region. Jesus reaches out to us. Jesus heals our ears and loosens our tongues. May we hear his words and speak his grace. Amen.